here we go. So we had a little technical issue, but I think we got it worked out now. Thank you everybody for joining us for the 10th episode of The Debt Life with me, Chad Van Horn. Today's topic is a fresh start to your finances in 2021. We're going to chat with Sam Eppy, who's an insurance and investment advisor with the Eppy Group, a friend of mine and my advisor as well. So I'm happy to bring him on. Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hey, Chad.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for being part of this, man. Can you give me a little of your background and what does the Eppy Group do?
Sure. So the Eppy Group's been around since 1993. I joined the firm in 2009, and we are comprehensive financial advisors. So we help our clients with retirement planning, wealth management, a variety of insurance services, and we also do corporate retirement plans. So, and then I went to UCF in Orlando.
Go Knights.
That's right.
National champions.
That's right. Self-proclaimed, but that doesn't matter. And I got a degree in accounting. So my degree in accounting from UCF has been really helpful in just trying to, help clients understand their books and make good business decisions when it comes to their finances.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into it, Sam. One of the big things that clients are concerned about when they come see me is what assets will I lose if I go through a bankruptcy, or what assets can be seized by creditors. And usually when it comes to that point, it's too late to do asset protection or traditional asset protection or estate planning, because that would be considered fraudulent transfers, and especially in bankruptcy, they're very aggressive at going after those. What is asset protection in your world, and what assets are worth protecting, and what are some of the strategies that you can use to protect those?
Well, there's things that I've been taught internally in my business, and then I've obviously always deferred to experts like yourself. So, we could probably have this more as a dialogue. I know from my experience, certain insurance assets are granted creditor protection. So, at least in the state of Florida, from my understanding, whole life insurance, any type of cash value life insurance product will go through bankruptcy and come out clear on the other side. I know, homesteads, primary residences, can be creditor protected, and annuity vehicles.
And Sam, with the homestead, you're absolutely right. And the Florida is one of the best states for homestead protections, but there actually are limitations to that people don't realize. Specifically, there's acreage limitations, half acre within a municipality, 160 acres if you're in an unincorporated area. And also there's time limits, like you can't, and they call it the OJ law because he put all of his money into a homestead and then it was exempt from collection from the civil suit. You're limited to a certain amount for the first 1,215 days that you move here and invest in a homestead. So I just wanted to clarify that. But you were saying annuities as well?
Annuities and retirement accounts, any qualified accounts. So that would be 401ks, IRAs, and things of that nature.
What is an annuity?
So an annuity is essentially a insurance product with an investment component to it, or a value component to it, right? It's not just protection, it's protection surrounding an asset. So insurance companies are the primary seller of annuities, and annuities come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them are designed to provide maximum income to someone. Some of them are designed to provide downside protection in the market. Obviously, today's market environment is one where you have some people that they don't want to lose too much, and they know that they probably should be invested, but they just want some downside protection. So there are annuities that provide that. Annuities really do come in all shapes and sizes. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of products out there, and they're really designed based on the person's needs. So I actually just got off the call with a client who had a very specific need for income, but also to protect. They had a special needs situation, and so they wanted to protect their child and try to maximize the death benefit to their heirs. And so there was a product that we were able to find for them to present, that would work for them. So that's what an annuity is.
Very interesting. Now, as far as retirement goes, obviously annuities can help with that. But I believe most people are most familiar with IRAs and 401ks. So first off, where does the name IRA and 401k come from, and what's the difference between those? Can you talk about those a little bit?
Sure. So we'll start with IRA because that is the most common. It's an individual account. IRA actually stands for Individual Retirement Account. Sure. And IRAs can be opened up by most people. The laws do continue to change, and so people need to really get with their tax advisor to determine do they qualify for an IRA. But most people out there that I interact with do end up qualifying for an IRA if they, maybe they don't have an account available to them through their employer. Mm-hmm. And IRAs have limits on how much you're allowed to add every year. So the basic limit is in 2020 was $6,000.
So $6,000 for the entire year. If I wanted to put more in, I'm not allowed?
Correct, unless you're over 50 years old. If you're over 50 years old, there's an additional catch-up contribution, which I believe is $1,000. But these numbers change from year to year. The IRS tends to inflate the inflation factor. So over the last 5 years, it's climbed steadily. Where 6,000 was not the same amount, as 5 years ago.
Okay. And how's that compared to a 401k?
Yeah, so 401ks are the other most common type. If you work for a sizable employer, usually that's what's offered. And you can take out of your paycheck up to $19,500 generally. And so that's a significantly larger amount than an IRA.
For sure. And how much is there a percentage? How much should we be taking out of our paycheck? Or how much should we be putting into our retirement?
Well, that is really a personal question. So we tend in our office that we do financial planning for our clients, and we like to look at their lifestyle and try to figure out, look, somebody who spends $60,000 a year to live doesn't need to save as much as somebody who spends $200,000 a year on their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So the amount that you save is really dependent on the life that you live. There are definitely rules of thumb, for the sake of this, session. I think, it's safe to say that you definitely should be looking at somewhere around 5 to 10% of your income, but it really is a personal decision between you, your family, and your advisors.
Yeah, like if you want to go out on Las Olas every night, you might need to save a little bit more. If you're willing to, eat at home more often and maybe cut down on the wine, then obviously you wouldn't need to save as much.
Exactly. And same thing with your house. Like if your house is kind of scheduled to be paid off in retirement, well, you're not going to have as much need, you're not going to pay a mortgage every month. But if your mortgage is still going to be due in retirement, there's a need that we have.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a huge overlooked concept. And I'm debt sensitive just because I meet with people that are dealing with debt issues every day. So it's going to be my goal if I ever do retire, which I don't think I don't think I'll be able to retire because I'm just too active. I like being useful. I would like to go into retirement debt free so that my money is going to go much farther instead of making a mortgage payment that could be thousands of dollars a month that would take away from your retirement income. If you can go into retirement debt free, that puts you ahead of a lot of other people, right?
Oh, significantly. I mean, when we do planning, debt is our first and primary focus. If I come across somebody that has an income that they're really trying to set themselves on the right path, mm-hmm. If I'm faced with credit card debt, student loan debt, really any debt, that is our primary focus, especially at higher interest rates.
For sure. And I get many clients that come in to me, and sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after. And they'll go to their financial advisor and they say, I can get a loan against my 401k to pay off this debt. when it comes to that, and obviously it's a very personal decision and you have to look at all the facts, when it comes to taking loans against 401k or taking early withdrawals, what's your opinion on that, especially when it is to pay off credit cards or unsecured debt?
Well, I mean, in those scenarios, it's really about the greater of two evils, I would say. All I care about is putting a client in a better position. So if their interest rate on their credit card is 20%,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the eligibility to take a 401k loan, I certainly would advise we explore it. The question, then becomes, if you do that, let's make sure we have a strategy to pay that off as well, because any money when you take a loan on your retirement account, you're essentially borrowing money from yourself, from your retirement.
Yep, that makes sense.
And if you're doing that, you're only really hurting yourself in two ways. One, you're taking from your future, depending on how quickly you repay yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you're subject to, what did the market do in that year, right? If the market goes down, you kind of did yourself a favor. You took money out that, you weren't going to make as much on because the market was down. If the market was up, let's say the market was up 10 to 20% in that year, well, you just hurt yourself because the interest rate you're paying yourself back is significantly less than whatever the going returns from the market were. So it definitely goes back to that. Everyone's situation is different, response, but it's definitely worth exploring. And I would tell anybody to explore it if they had debts that were out there and they had an asset that was, available to them like that.
For sure. Again, we're with Sam Eppy from the Eppy Group, my expert financial advisor, and we're going over some things that we can do with your money in 2021. I actually have clients that come in all the time, and I, like you, it's nice to have all the options on the table, even if there's some bad options. Just put them all out there, weigh the options, and if there's truly an option that you're not going to move forward with, obviously cross that one off. But it's nice to have options. And I have clients that come in all the time, and they're weighing bankruptcy versus getting a loan against their homestead that might be paid off, or a loan against a 401k. And my concern with doing that is, or taking money out of the 401k, is do you want to retire? Because if you're taking this money, and sometimes it's significant, $50,000, $100,000 out, and if they're in a position where they're in their 50s or 60s, it's not like they have a ton of time to replenish that. So we have to balance that all the time as well, where, maybe it's better just filing bankruptcy. These are exempt assets. They're not going to take them, and you'll still be able to retire in a timely manner instead of working into your 70s, 80s, and a long time. So do you see that sometimes as well?
Yeah, I think the situation you're describing, they're looking at bankruptcy already, right? The situations, fortunately, that I deal with, and if I'm not, I'm typically sending them your way. But
Yep.
If for my clients, they have credit card debt, they're not faced with bankruptcy as an option, and we're trying to clean it up. If bankruptcy is out there as on the table as an option,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm really deferring to you, because if you and the client are saying to me, hey, look, we're okay with this as an option, here's what we believe is going to happen through this process, and in the end, I am able to protect these other assets,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. Why would you pierce your 401k to put money, to pay off debts that potentially, in working with somebody like yourself, they might be able to, walk out of, through the bankruptcy process.
For sure. And we're going to move on a little bit here, because we can certainly dig deep into that. One of the biggest resolutions every year is budgeting. It's about budgeting. You're budgeting funds. I'm going to stick to a budget. I'm going to save a certain amount of money. I'm not going to spend $11 at Starbucks every morning. I'm going to put some of that money into my retirement or some other account. Do you have any tips when it comes to putting together a budget and sticking to a budget?
Yeah, I can try to give a couple of tips.
Well, let's do that.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so, I say the first thing is you need a good breakdown of what kind of expenses are out there in the world. Because when I ask people what they spend on a monthly basis, I'd say 9 times out of 10, they are pretty far off from what they're actually spending, right? People used to think about their car payment, their mortgage, and a couple other items, and they say, Sam, my expenses are $4,000 a month. And then when my brother Craig is my business partner, when we start digging in, they're not spending $4,000 a month. If I take some annualized expenses, maybe they forgot about, they're spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. They forget about the travel they did in a year, all sorts of things.
And Sam, I think one of the most famous examples of not having a clue what you're spending money on is, do you know the Dwayne Wade when he retired and had to buy milk? Did you hear about that?
No, tell me that.
So yeah, look it up. It's pretty funny that Dwayne Wade was going out to buy milk, and they were talking. Okay, well, how much do I need for the grocery store? Like, what's milk? $40, I think. He had no idea the cost of milk.
I think maybe the guy buys 10 gallons at a time.
Right, 10 gallons of organic massage Kobe milk or something. But I agree with you. We always pull the bank statements and look at what people are spending because we're like, oh yeah, I'm only spending like a couple $100 a month on going out. You look at it, it's like, no, you're spending about $1,500. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but I thought that was a hilarious story.
Oh no, it's a perfect example, man. So I would say, you could do it one of two ways. You can look at the bank statements like you guys do, and you can really see what's being spent. Or you can take a robust expense worksheet, like we have one we use for our clients. I'd be happy to provide that to anyone who reaches out, that, brings up things that people forget about, like travel.
Yep.
And that's a good starting point for budgeting, is to look at all of those expenses and not forget the ones that are so easily forgotten.
Yeah, I think that's great. And let's share your information now. We're going to go through some more. We're going to answer any questions that pop up as well. But how can people get in contact with you, Sam?
Sure. So my brother and I are business partners. So as far as the email address goes, we have an email address that's probably best to send to, which is financebrothers@eppygroup.com. So that's financebrothers@eppygroup, which is EPPY group.com.
So financebrothers@eppygroup.com. Is eppygroup.com too the website that people can go to?
Yep, eppygroup.com is our company website, and our office phone number is 954-271-7888. And to reach my team, you actually press option 1.
Awesome. And I work with you, so I'm a testament to your hard work and ethics, and I certainly recommend anybody that's looking to, even if you're starting small, because you don't have to come with them with $1 million, and you can start with them with $100, and they'll teach you how to grow it to $1 million. Right, Sam?
Yeah, I would say that.
That's what you promised me. We're still working on it, but you promised me we're going to get there, right?
Yeah, we will definitely get there.
All right, man. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to go over?
I do have a question for you in regards to the original topic of asset protection. And so in our office, we've been told from time to time that if we open up a joint tenants in the entireties account, transfer on death, that, for a married couple, that can be an extra layer of protection for them. And I don't, fully understand it because I'm not in your field.
Yep.
But I keep being told, hey, Sam, if you do this, it's technically the entire account of the one person and the entire account of the other. And then, of course, you have the beneficiary arrangement with the transfer on death. So that, means that the money will pass through the beneficiary arrangement. Could you, kind of add some color to any of that?
For sure. And we have some other questions that we're going to answer, but that's a great question. One of the simplest forms of asset protection is tenancy by the entireties. And tenancy by the entireties can only be created by somebody that's married, and it has to be acquired after the marriage. So, I got married February 29th. I can't just add my wife to an account that I had prior. It has to be a new account after February 29th. And anything that we own jointly and we acquired at the same time and we have equal ownership of it, like a bank account, like real estate, is completely exempt from creditors in Florida that are not joint creditors. Joint creditors are the only ones that can break that tenancy by entireties. So it's very, very simple to set up. We run into issues where, for some reason in Florida with vehicles, they have a title that says or. If it says or, it's not tenancy by the entireties because you don't each have ownership of it together. You each have separate ownership. If the title of things is and, generally speaking, it's tenancy by the entireties. And that's for vehicles, bank accounts, anything. So if you set things up properly, and I always recommend keeping finances separate for married couples anyway, for multiple reasons. But one of them would be for tenancy by entireties. You can keep somebody completely clean of all debt, and any assets that you own jointly would be completely exempt. Does that explain it pretty well for you?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Awesome. Yeah, we got some great questions here. Can my retirement account be taken by a creditor? It really depends on what type of retirement account that is. Generally speaking, retirement accounts cannot be seized by creditors. The policy behind that, or the reasoning behind that, is we want people to retire, and if you take their retirement, then the state is going to have to pay for them and take care of them when they're older. So you can't let the creditors basically take that money. Keith asked that as well. Lydia, are safe deposit box considered an asset? That's another thing that becomes an issue in my world, probably more than your world. Safety deposit boxes are registered with all the banks, and sometimes clients forget that they have these safety deposit boxes, and whatever assets are in there are subject to turnover in a bankruptcy and can be seized by creditors. Safety deposit boxes can be owned tenancy by the entireties as well. So if you own that jointly, hey, do you deal with trust at all? Somebody asked about what is a trust?
So obviously, because we don't practice law, we don't draft trusts, but we have plenty of clients that open accounts in the names of their trusts. And I would technically, say we're probably better off to have you or an estate attorney answer that type of question. My general knowledge is around whether that is a revocable or irrevocable trust, how many parties there are to the trust, that kind of thing. But that's really as far as my knowledge goes. Typically, the client comes to me, says they have a trust, and at that point, we open the account in the name of it. So instead of it being the Chad Van Horn investment account, it becomes the Chad Van Horn Family Trust investment account.
And just general, because I know that you can go really deep into trust and everything. Why would somebody have a trust in general?
Well, my knowledge from the financial planning side is really for control of the asset and to try to avoid probate. So, just at a very basic level, trusts are designed to help whoever's assets they were and whoever they're passing them to be transferred efficiently. So, I'll give you an example of mine. I can only speak for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 children, and I don't, God forbid something happens to me, I certainly don't want them to be in charge of the money when they become an adult, because I believe in our state it's either 18 or 21 years old. And I know when I was up to 18 or 21 years old, it wasn't with you, Chad, but I think, you're probably getting gotten into some trouble back then. And I don't want my kids having that money, right? So yeah. I established a trust to be able to control beyond the grave that they couldn't get that money until, let's say, 25 or 30 years old. And until that point, I actually appointed my brother to be in charge of those funds. And so that's very, it gives me peace of mind knowing my kids won't, blow all the money that I've worked so hard to spend for them. Definitely not with my frugal brother.
And you're right, and that's actually a lot of pressure and responsibility on an 18 or 21-year-old. If you have significant amount of money, I mean, you at least I know I was too immature to deal with that, especially at 18 or 21. So that's certainly a good vehicle for that. And I think that dovetails nicely into what's your thoughts on life insurance in general?
I actually started in the business specifically focused on life insurance. So that's where I cut my teeth. I mean, look, there's really two varieties, permanent and temporary, which is term insurance. I think anyone who has someone who depends on them that they need to take care of should probably be looking at life insurance. Term insurance is very affordable and it's definitely the first stop for most people when it comes to asset protection, legacy planning, tax strategies. That's when we start looking at cash value life insurance products. Certainly, when I've dealt with higher net worth individuals who, are faced with bankruptcy, if they've got annuities or cash value life insurance, sometimes those become a safety net for them. And when they're done working with somebody like you, that it becomes some of the most sizable assets that they're able to keep through the bankruptcy process. At least that's my understanding.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense. Well, that's just about all the time. It's 12:30. We try to keep it to a half hour. Sam, I really appreciate you making the time today. Everybody, reach out to Sam if you have any questions on this directly. He's very accessible. He's a very busy man, so I appreciate him fitting us in today. Sam, can you give your contact information one more time?
Sure. So the best email address to reach us is financebrothers@eppygroup.com, same as the last name, and the phone number is 954-271-7888. That's my office, and you can reach us at option number 1.
Awesome. Thanks again, Sam. If you need anything from me, my number is 954-637-0000. You can go to vanhornlawgroup.com. We have weekend appointments, night appointments. Also wrote 2 books, The Debt Life and Bankruptcy in Florida. You can get those through the website. Thanks again for joining me for the 10th episode of The Debt Life. I hope you enjoyed the topics. We love having guests like Sam on. One day we're going to get the technology to work so you can actually see his beautiful face, and then we're going to have him back. But thank you. Go ahead, Sam.
I have a face for radio chat. So
so maybe this was on purpose that we were unable to get you on. Well, thanks again for everybody that tuned in, and Sam, thanks again, and I'll catch up with you soon because I got to update some of my policies, I think.
All right.